All right, go ahead and have a seat, everybody. Good. Okay, we are back on the record after our mid-morning break. We have our jurors, counsel, and parties present, and I believe the state has another witness to call. Mr. Ringel, are you prepared to call your next witness?
Yes, Judge, thank you. The state calls Detective Tiffany Lord.
Good morning. Ms. Lord, if you want to come over and have a seat to my far left, if you would. Yeah, right there. You go ahead and have a seat. And that microphone's on. You can adjust it however you'd like. First thing I'm going to do, Ms. Lord, is swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
I do.
Okay. And then for the record, can you please give us your first name and your last name and spell them for us?
Yeah, it's Tiffany Lord, Tiffany. Lord is Lord.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Ringel.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
Detective, how are you currently employed?
I work for the University of Iowa as a detective/digital forensic investigator.
First, can you explain what a digital forensic investigator is?
Yeah, so in general what we do is we receive digital evidence, whether that's a phone, computer, tablet, anything that's digital, we receive it in our care. We preserve the data, so we'll usually take pictures of it, and then we'll get an image of that. An image is a working copy of that digital device, so we're not altering the evidence. And then we'll process that device, which makes it in a workable format that is easier for us to see or the investigator that we give the case to.
You said you're also a detective. Can you talk about your education and training that qualifies you for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity from Champlain. I also have my certificate in digital forensics from the Des Moines Community Area College. I also have, I'm a part of IASIS, which is the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists. And within that, I have my CFCE, which is a Certified Forensic Computer Examiner. I also have my Mobile Device Forensic Examiner certification, and also the Magnet Certified Forensic Examiner.
Can you talk about, you said that you work as a digital forensic investigator, you're obviously also working as a detective. What's your experience in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement since 2017 and in this position since the end of 2020.
And generally, can you talk about your duties?
Yeah, so I mainly work, my main role is digital forensic investigator. The only thing that I do investigation-wise from start to finish, which includes like search warrants and stuff, is the child exploitation cases. But as far as digital forensics go, we take any case.
Would you be able to put an estimate on how many such examinations or extractions you've done when it comes to your work as a digital forensic investigator?
Yeah, so I've done hundreds of examinations and then a couple dozen examination reports.
Any other relevant training or experience?
So I've attended NCFI, which is the National Computer Forensic Investigator course.
Oh, hold on one second. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, NCFI is the National Computer Forensics Institute, which is actually through the Secret Service. I've also attended some NW3C classes, which is the National White Collar Crime Center.
So you stated that you received different electronic devices for evaluation or examination. Can you explain that process a little bit? How do you receive electronic devices, and then what do you do with those devices?
Yeah, so we get devices in all various ways. Sometimes it comes straight from the search warrant. Sometimes they have it for a few days. Once we receive that device, if it is currently powered on, we take a picture of it, and then we put it on our imaging device that gets that working copy of it. If the device is powered off and we're not sure like what state it is in, then we have what's called a Faraday box that blocks any signals coming in or out, so it can't change the data while it's in there. And then once that extraction is complete, then we would then take a picture of that device.
What type of devices are you examining?
In this case or in general?
Generally.
In general, all electronic devices, so it could be phones, tablets, computers, the Oculus VR sets, tablets.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to slow down just a little bit. Having just a little bit of trouble hearing your answers.
And I see my court reporter's nodding her head, so help her out as well.
All right. So turning specifically to cellular phones, what type of information may be of interest to a digital forensic investigator on a cellular phone?
Yeah, so in general, locations, media, conversations, whether that be call, text messages, anything within applications, health data, Google search history, or any browser history.
Okay. So there's a number of different sources of information, and I'll walk through some of those that you just referenced here. Can you talk a little bit, and I think you have, but just to make it clear, with the cellular phone, how do you go about accessing that information?
So that varies. If we have the passcode, we can get different kind of extractions, I guess, off of devices. And so we have what is called a GrayKey, which is a device that images it for us. You plug the phone into it, and then it takes the image off of it. So you can have the passcode. We can also get devices without a passcode. It just varies on the device.
Okay, and you say that you're taking an image of the phone. What do you mean by an image?
So that is what I mentioned earlier. It's a working copy of the phone. So that way we aren't altering the actual evidence, and we can then take that copy of the image, or the image, which is the copy, and put it into Magnet, Axiom, Celebrate. Those are different processes that then makes it viewable for the end user.
So if I understand correctly, you essentially take the phone and make a one-to-one copy of all the information on that phone.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bit by bit on a phone, as it would be a computer. It does take all the data that is on there, but like if there's something that is deleted, be permanently deleted, we're not going to be able to necessarily get that back. It just depends on the application. Every application is different how the data is stored.
All right, so essentially you're taking a copy of pretty much all the data on the phone, is that correct?
Yes.
And then you're working with that copy?
Yes.
You mentioned Magnet Axiom. What is that?
Yeah, so that is a software that we then input our image into that breaks it down and makes it readable.
And Celebrate, is that similar?
Yes.
And so you're taking that copy that you've made of the information from the phone and you're putting it into these programs, and you said that that makes the information readable. Could you explain what that means?
Yeah, so when it takes the copy, it's all in a file system. So you have different file paths. And when you look at that, there's a lot of data there. And what this process does, it makes it where these are your Snapchat conversations, these are your messages, this is the Google browser. So it kind of breaks that down for you. So you can click on it and see, okay, well, what was searched and things like that.
So if I understand correctly, when you make that initial copy of the data, it's just a lot of essentially unsorted data that mirrors what's on the phone. Is that fairly accurate?
I mean, it is sorted within the file path, but no layperson is going to look at that and know where, okay, what do I click on to then find the images, or what file path do I click on, because it's, you know, paths within paths.
I see. And so then with these programs, it's sorted out into specific either applications, messaging, communication, or a way that's, as you stated, more readable.
Yes.
So once you've taken that image and fed it into these programs, are you then working, at this point you can work both with the original data if you wanted to do that and with the readouts or reports from these programs, is that correct?
Yes.
So once you've run the data through Magnet Axiom or Celebrate, what are you doing as an investigator at that point?
That varies. So with that, sometimes people just bring me the device and they just want it extracted, processed. I then can give it back to them for the investigator to then go through. Sometimes in certain cases they ask me to look through it, or if they found something, they ask me how this came about, where this came from, because I can explain it where they can't.
Okay. So you yourself, if you were asked to go ahead and investigate a phone, how does that work? Are you given information about the case that you then use to direct your search, or are you just going in and looking for what you believe to be items of interest?
Yeah, so usually they give me some information. If it is something that's based on a certain date, they'll give me that date that happened, the kind of case they have, what they are generally looking for on there. So if they're looking for, say it's a burglary and they want location data, they'll put that on there. So just the basics of the crime.
And I understand this is sort of a broad question, but there's certainly a lot of different types of information or data on a cellular phone, correct?
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned there's applications, there's various forms of communication. I think everyone's pretty familiar with the fact that you can take video, photographs, etc. What other type of information are you able to recover from a cellular phone?
Yeah, so it also records health data such as steps taken, distance that you walked. Also, pattern of life is a big thing, ownership of the device, and yeah, the Google search history, media, all of that.
Okay. A couple of things that you mentioned that I just want to make sure we have an understanding of. The first would be an application. What is an application?
Yeah, so it's a software that you download. So say from an Apple, it would be the Apple Play Store. Then Google would be the Google Play Store. So it's software that you download on your phone that serves a purpose or purposes.
And so what type of information, my guess is that this varies, but what type of information are you able to retrieve from an application?
Yeah, it definitely varies. Sometimes you get deleted stuff on there, but the main thing is time, date, stamp of when, say, something was sent or received, if it is a conversation or a search of some sort.
Would the type of information that you're able to obtain depend to some degree on the nature of the application itself?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, does it depend on the nature of the application?
Yes.
Could you just explain that?
Yeah, so say with Snapchat, it's a conversation, so you can see who the receiver is, who the sender is, what time that message was sent or received. And then let's say with a browser, it'll show what date and time that search term was searched. As far as deleted stuff, it varies on every application. Sometimes it's so encrypted, that application is, because each application has its own security within too, that sometimes when it's deleted, it's permanently gone and you can't recover it. Then other times it stores it in a different database.
You mentioned the concept of pattern of life. That's something that's important to you as an investigator. What does pattern of life mean?
So how they use their phone. With, say, browser history, you can see how often they use it. Do they use it every day? Is there a point in time that, something isn't searched, or is there a big gap in data that, normally would be there otherwise? You can kind of see if there's location data, where they go, and then the emails, what they log into, what sites they go to.
So essentially, historic data about the use of the phone over time.
Yes.
You said as a digital forensic investigator, sometimes you're able to obtain information that's been deleted. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so again, with every application, it's different. And so with certain things, it puts it in the same database, just it'll mark it as this is deleted. Other times it puts it in more of what's called like a non-active part of that database. So if you were to take that database out and you put it in like a database viewer or something, you're not going to see that deleted data. But you can see it in the non-active part, which is mainly in what's called the binary, which is the 1 and 0s of that user partition, and then it'll pull that out that way.
Okay. And admittedly, that was a little bit confusing, at least for me. So I guess what I would like to understand is when you have something on your phone, you delete that information. It's gone, or it seems to be no longer accessible to the user. Sounds like you're stating that that's not necessarily the case, that that data is completely gone, and instead that you as an investigator are able to access that?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes it can be permanently deleted. So good example, I guess, now with current phones, say you were to delete a photo, at least on an iPhone, it would normally go to your deleted folder for 30 days. You have the option to recover it, and you can still see it in that deleted folder. But once it's gone, sometimes it's permanently gone, but other times we can still get that data when we do a forensic exam. So it just varies.
So as a user of the phone, using your photo example, after we've passed that 30 days and it's been deleted, it's no longer accessible to you, but nonetheless, it may still exist in the data somewhere on the phone.
That is correct.
And is that until it's overwritten, or at what point is that no longer accessible?
It varies. Sometimes it will stay there for a certain period of time, whatever the software developers put in there. Other times, yes, it will stay in there until that data is overwritten with other conversations or whatever you are doing.
So we talked a little bit about the types of information that you're able to recover, the fact that at times you can recover deleted information. We've talked about pattern of life. I think you talked about health apps as a potential application, and the ability of those apps to record steps. Any other information on the phone that you can typically find or may be able to find related to location or movement data?
Well, if they're you can usually see location database, but that is only for a certain period of time. So there's the Apple routine, which is the most common, which is the most precise location. That's only on there for 7 days. But yeah, other than that, then Snapchat also shows location, but again, that also varies on if that is stored on the phone or not. But with a search warrant, you can also get that data sometimes.
And just to be clear, we're talking specifically about location data related to, or that you would be able to discover related to the data that's on an actual cell phone. Based on your training and experiences, your understanding that there's other ways to determine the location of a cell phone that don't involve strictly the data on the phone?
Like such as conversations, you can see if people are talking about where they are. But
Cell tower locations and those types of things
yeah,
as well?
you can get cell tower locations. I didn't do anything with that on this case. Someone else did. But yeah, for sure, you can get what's called a geolocation search warrant, and that can then, basically location is always pinning off of towers. And so you can get locations that way.
And as you just stated, that's outside of the scope of what you did on this particular case.
Correct.
So I do want to turn now to this case specifically. Did you receive some electronic devices associated with this case for examination?
I did.
Do you recall which devices you received?
Yeah, so I received a HP computer. I received 3 iPhones. Well, 3 iPhones that I was advised were Karina Cooper's, and then there was 6 iPhones that I was advised was Houston Dakers.
And did you examine each of these devices?
I did.
Did you follow the protocol essentially that you outlined previously in examining these devices?
I did.
So that would involve connecting them, making a copy of the data, utilizing those programs that you referenced, and then working both with the raw data and the output of those programs.
I did.
Can you outline briefly what information you had when you began your examination?
Yeah, so I was only given that there was a shooting in Tama County and on the date of June 18th, 2021, around 4:30 a.m. And they just wanted to know if I could get a better extraction than what they got originally, and that's all I was told.
Okay. And with that information, then generally, what type of information would you be looking for?
Yeah, so obviously with the shooting, you're going to be looking for guns. You'd also, to narrow down the scope a little bit, take it down to the time of the incident, see what was happening around then, which in this case would be prior to.
And it sounds like you received phones that belonged both to Karina Cooper and Houston Danker. So you understand that there was a shooting, you understood the date that this occurred, and it sounds like there was potential involvement of 2 separate parties. So were you looking for information related to, as you said, at or around the time of that shooting you're looking for information? What types of information are you looking for, especially considering that we're talking about 2 potential individuals being involved?
Yeah, so at the time, I did not know if there's any other involvement. I was not told anything besides Karina's name, that she was the wife of the deceased. So what I was just looking at is if anything stood out as far as like conversations, movements, any searches prior to pattern of life, like I mentioned before, just any sort of conversations.
Okay. And I'm not asking you to go into what you found, because we're going to go through that here in a moment. But ultimately, were you able to, when you examined these devices, find any information of evidentiary value?
I was.
On which devices did you find that information?
Yeah, so on the first iPhone 8 Plus that I was advised was Karina Cooper's. On the white iPhone 7, I was advised was Houston Dinker's. And on the iPhone 10 that I was also advised was Houston Dinker's. And
just generally, what types of information did you find that were of value?
Yeah, so there was Google searches, health data, Facebook, or not Facebook, but text messages, Snapchat conversations, and then pattern of life.
I want to talk to you a little bit. You talked about 2 separate phones. There's an iPhone 8 Plus that was determined to belong to Karina Cooper. I'll start with that phone. How were you able to determine, or were you able to determine by looking at the data and information on the phone, that it belonged to Karina Cooper?
I was.
How were you able to do that?
Yeah, so there was a lot of usernames to different applications on there. Her email is also on there. It was also registered to her for her Apple account.
When you say it's registered to her, and I know you had referenced this previously when talking about the types of information you can find on a phone, what are you looking at that tells you who's registered the phone and essentially who owns that phone? What is that information that's on there?
Yeah, so when you have an iPhone, you typically would register it to like an iCloud account. In this case, hers was linked to an iCloud account. There's also other addresses, email addresses that is, such as for her lasting impressions job that she had. And then there's also within the web browser different sites that she went to that you would log into, and those emails or usernames are also saved on that device.
You mentioned lasting impressions. Through the work that you did on this phone, were you able to make a determination about what that was?
It was a hairdressing company.
And the same question with regard to Houston Danker's iPhone 7. What were you able to find that made you believe that it belonged to Houston Danker?
Yeah, so similar to what I said with her, there was, on the web browser, there was usernames, emails associated that had his first and last name on there. It was also registered to an iCloud account.
So turning to these 2 phones, I guess I'll start with Karina's phone. You talked a little bit about the types of information that you were able to locate. Were you also able to find data or look at data that gave you some notion of her pattern of life or usage of the phone?
Yeah, so, yes.
So there's a lot of, well, I guess I want to ask you this with regard to these phones. You've talked a little bit about being able to locate or determine information about dates and times. That would include dates and times certain things were accessed or communications took place. How are you able to determine that those dates and times are accurate?
Yeah, so we always do validation. And on top of that validation, I always do more. So when I find a piece of evidence that I think is pertinent, you can actually take out that database, and then it has the date and timestamp also within that, and I use what's called this DB browser, which is just an interpretation of that string of numbers, which is the date and time, to see what it says to make sure that my software is actually interpreting that correctly too.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you to slow down just a little bit. You said the first thing you mentioned was validation, and then you said you do more than validation. Can you start by explaining what validation is?
Yeah, so there's different ways you can validate. One of that is you take a phone that you know dates and times on, what is going on, and you image that phone. Then you process it to verify, do those date and time stamps line up with what you know is on that phone. Secondly, with what I talked about with the databases, what I do is I can extract that database, that, you know, whatever it is that is in that, and then within that there's different tables, and they'll have like a date and time stamp within that, which is a string of numbers. And so if you use another software that then interprets that data, it can see if that matches what your process says.
And that's those processes then you utilize with regard to both phones in this case, Houston Danker's phone and Karina Cooper's phone, to validate and assure that the dates and times that you've included or found were correct.
Yes.
All right. Just so the jury has an understanding of the amount of information that you're able to locate on a phone, how much information did you locate or how much data did you locate on Karina Cooper's iPhone Plus?
Are you asking how much data was on the phone?
Yes, either in terms of gigs, length of report. How would you explain how much information you're able to pull off that phone?
I don't recall the exact gigabytes the phones were, but I can tell you there's millions of different data points within the phone that you can look through.
And that would be the same for Houston Danker's iPhone 7?
Yes.
Considering all the different types of information you said you were able to locate, the amount of raw data, sounds like that's a lot of information. In order to present the information that you found, did you create a summary or a report?
I did.
And the summary that you created, was that based on the information that was found on these phones pulled from either the raw data, the Celebrate report, or the Magnet report?
It was.
Would it aid your testimony in discussing the information that you found to use the demonstrative exhibit that you prepared?
Yes.
And before we get into that demonstrative exhibit, how did you, first of all, what types of information did you find, and then how did you organize the information that you're presenting?
Yeah, so I stated earlier there were text messages located, health data, Snapchats, search history, and how I did it was I organized it more by date and time. So you'll see the stuff that was earlier first onto when the incident occurred.
All right. And Judge, if we could get the screen turned on.
Just so we're clear, you want to turn on the screen for a demonstrative exhibit to show the jury.
Correct.
And I just want to make sure that this is okay. Does the Ms. Watt, have you had a chance to see this?
We have.
And you're okay with this?
Yes.
All right, then we will go forward.
Just do it at the end. And Judge, at this time, the state,
Hold on.
all right,
Gotta try it again. Get the big screen up. There we go. And I'm sorry, Mr. Ringel, you were starting to say something. At this time, the state was going to do something, and then I cut you off.
that's all right. The state would move to admit this as State's Exhibit number 306.
Well, then it's not really a demonstrative exhibit.
That's correct. I'm asking now if the state, as I said, the state's now moving to admit it as an exhibit.
Ms. Watt?
I hadn't contemplated that. I thought it was only a demonstrative. Could I just have some, I mean, we can go through this and I can just think about whether I have any position on that.
Sure. I don't know that we need to cross that bridge this second. So I'll give you a little bit of time. Go ahead, Mr. Ringel. I'll make a note to circle back.
Thank you, Judge. All right, what are we seeing in this image here?
Yeah, so this is the iPhone 8 Plus that I received that was in possession of Karina Cooper at the time of the incident.
And then this next image?
Yes, the left image there is what I was advised was Houston Danker's iPhone 7, and on the right is the iPhone 10.
And the first image that we saw of the iPhone 8 and then here the iPhone 7, are those the two phones respectively that you examined in this case and found relevant information on?
Yes.
All right. So we're starting here. This looks like it says an Apple iMessage. What is an Apple iMessage?
Yeah, so an Apple iMessage is what's your SMS message? Basically is what is integrated in the phone when you receive it to be able to text other people back and forth.
All right. And what are we seeing here in this image?
Yeah, so this is a message from the iPhone 8 Plus to this contact that was called Wind Up Jake.
So it's the Apple phone belonging to Karina Cooper. It's communication with someone named Wind Up Jake. Based on the information you located, when did this communication take place?
Yeah, October 6th, 2020.
And what did you find of relevance in this communication?
So it was a conversation between the two of them where Wind Up Jake found, or actually someone else, Diane, found a check of life insurance company, called them. It was an accidental death policy on him that he didn't know that she had, his wife that was. And so then the message that was from the iPhone 8 Plus was, maybe she was mad at you and saw an opportunity.
And as an investigator, why did you believe this was important?
Yeah, based on, well, if you know someone that has a life insurance policy and that you can get the money from it, that's always a possibility.
What are we seeing in this next image here?
So these are different screenshots that were located on the iPhone 8 Plus. As you can see over here on the left, the account creation. The account name was Karina Cooper, with the value is actually the password of Hair Lady 1977. It shows that it was created on November 7th of 2020, and it shows last visited on the regular browser in December 17th of 2020. So these two pictures are very similar. As you can tell, they're not exactly the same. They're screenshots taken at different dates and times. The image on the left is November 8th, 2020. And if you look at the top, you can see that it does not say private next to it. And the image on the right is from November 19th, 2020. That does say private. So that's actually from the private browser.
Okay. A few different things I want to ask you about there. So the first thing, this information was located on the phone belonging to Karina Cooper.
Yes.
And under account creation, what's your understanding of what that information means?
So that's when you would set up that account.
And the account was through who or what website?
Yeah, huntered.com.
And the information you were able to determine was the account holder was the name Karina Cooper?
Yes.
And you said the value is?
That's the password.
So that password, as far as you understand, was required to access this information?
Yes.
Where on the phone did you locate these two Hunter Ed images? I'll start with the first one you said that was not marked private.
Yeah, so both of these were actually screenshots located in the database. So it was in the photo data database. They're actually both thumbnails of the original image.
And can you explain then what is the difference between the image that's not marked private and the one that's marked private? You made a distinction between a private browser and, I guess, a non-private browser.
Yeah, so in a private browser, it's meant to be, as it states, private. What you search in that does not keep web history, so once you close it out, that web history is gone.
And as an investigator, what did you find to be of import with regard to these images?
Yeah, it talks about, as you can see here, common types of handgun bullets, and it talks about each bullet and what it is good for.
What do you mean, what it's good for?
How it's used. So, as it says with the first one there, it has a good penetration, little expansion. So each bullet serves a different purpose.
Did you find well, the other thing I guess I wanted to ask you is you said these were screenshots and you're distinguishing that from what?
What would be called a web cache. That web cache is, how it does is when you're on a website and you're scrolling, it kind of takes its own images of that to kind of help the browser load faster. Those are different. That's not user interaction. That is what the phone is doing behind the scenes. This, a user would have had to take that screenshot.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, then the user would have had to manually capture these images and save them?
Yes.
Did you find any other similar images from this Hunter Ed website?
I did.
What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so there was a total of 89 that I located, and it was between the dates of November 8th, 2020 and November 19th, 2020. Here on the left, you can see that there's 23 screenshots that were taken on or before November 11th, 2020 in the regular browser. And then starting on November 18th, 2020, there was 66 screenshots taken, and those were all in the private browser. What I have here underneath shows the timestamp of when that was taken, that was located on the photo, and that also matches what the report said the screenshot was taken.
And did you review the majority, if not all, of these types of images from the Hunter Ed website?
I did.
And what generally was the nature of the information contained in those screenshots that were saved on Karina Cooper's phone?
It was all about guns, whether it be rifle, handgun, how to use them, how to keep them clean, also protection, and then the bullets.
When you say the bullets, I think you already referenced which bullets could be used for different things, including which ones had penetration. Did that include the basic parts of bullets, shell casings, that type of thing?
It did.
And this information here on the screenshot on the left, what is that imparting there below the image?
Yeah, this is talking about the maximum projectile and saying that it could cause injury or damage to persons, animals, or objects. And so knowing your firearm's maximum projectile range is critical, being safe and responsible hunter.
Does it also say it helps you determine whether or not you can make a clean kill?
Yes, it does.
So beyond, as we all know, the data, using your phone to search the internet, et cetera, of course, you can also make calls and send text messages, correct?
Yes.
All right. Were you able to determine by looking at the phones, the phone numbers associated with Karina Cooper and Houston Danker's phones?
I was.
All right. What are we seeing here?
So the gray is going to be what is coming from Karina Cooper's phone, and so that is her phone number, and then the blue will be Houston Danker, and that is his phone number. And this actually comes from his iPhone 7.
And you said you have them gray and blue. That's just for your demonstrative, correct?
Correct.
To distinguish between the two. Were you able to find text messages or communications between these two parties?
I was.
And so what is that icon or image that we're seeing in the top right?
Yeah, so that is just what the image looks like on your phone as the application,
And that application is,
the iMessage.
okay, so this is just standard Apple iMessage.
Yes.
Okay. So generally, what is the nature of this conversation based on your review of it?
That there is a sexual relationship between the two of them.
Okay. And this conversation that we're about to look at, what were they discussing, if you recall?
I don't recall exactly what this conversation's about without reading it.
Okay. So this is blue. Is that indicating that this was a communication that was from Houston Danker?
Yes.
Okay. What was this communication?
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Shit happens every day. Phones are replaceable. Hope the kids are enjoying the flying and the racing around of airports. I love you, baby. Have another safe flight. Have been waiting to hear from you.
And were you able to determine when this was sent?
Yes, I was.
When was that?
It was February 13th, 2021. So this is, yeah, okay. So this is from Karina's cell phone. It says, fucking hate him.
And that's approximately 4 minutes later.
Yes. And then, yeah, this is from Houston Danker's phone. Day one into vacation, truly starting, and 2 kids have already been treated like trash and cried. It makes my blood boil. Shit happens every day, no reason to make somebody cry over it or yell about it.
Did this appear to be a conversation then between the two parties based on the timestamps you located?
Yes,
This was approximately 2 minutes later.
yes,
And this would be a communication that was sent from Karina Cooper in response?
yes.
All right, and what's that communication?
I just keep imagining us traveling together and how much different and fun it would be. And this is from Houston Dacre's phone. We'd be having a blast with every single situation, whether Cade lost his phone, Keeble forgot his tablet, whatever the situation may be, still would be having a blast. I mean, come on, it's vacation. Lighten the fuck up, shit can be handled when you get back home, but that's just me. This is again him. Cade could have just had my phone the whole time. He didn't have one. And her response was, yep. Again, this goes back to Houston. Wouldn't have fazed me a bit. Here you go, wild man. Not like I'd have anybody to talk to you. Your mom's here with me.
And there's some emojis there as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what emojis are those?
There was a broken heart earlier. This one is a heart.
Is this part of the information that you used, in determining the nature of the relationship between the parties?
Yes. So this is again from Houston Danker's phone. Can't wait to travel with you and just laugh and smile and have a complete blast with whatever we are doing or whatever we are going, with another heart.
And then this was sent by Karina Cooper, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and what's that message?
Listen to the background of the video I'm about to send. Shows you the difference between people like us and people like him.
Okay. Were you able to locate then additional communications on an application called Snapchat?
I was.
Can you explain what Snapchat is and how it works?
Yeah, so I think the next slide actually says too. It's more of a discrete text messaging application, so you can use it to talk to somebody. It's a mobile app used for instant communication on your phone. So when you take a photo or a video, or you can send and receive just regular text messages through it. Also, it is user controlled, so it can be set to delete right after the message is sent. It can be set for 24 hours, and you can also even save the message within the chat.
Is that essentially one of the primary features of Snapchat, is that essentially I see the icon as a ghost, that the information can be instantly deleted, or people believe that it can be deleted and removed from the phone?
Yes.
You located Snapchat communications. Where did you locate those communications?
So these are actually in what's called it's carved from Axiom. So what it does is it can parse or carve information. And so the carving of that is typically a deleted data that's no longer there. This was still stored in the non-active part of the database that Snapchat would be in.
Okay, so when you say it's in a non-active part, the communications that you located of relevance were essentially in a deleted folder?
In a way, yes.
Okay. All right, you had indicated before that you had separated these out by date and time. That first date is March 8th, 2021?
Yes.
All right, and this just shows us a little bit of the format that you've used here. What are these red X's that we're seeing on the left of the screen?
It shows they're deleted.
Okay. And there's some brackets on the right side that are linking these bubbles that show times as well. What are those?
That is the time between the different chats.
Okay. And you've indicated that Houston Danker's communications are red and Karina's are blue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what is this first message that you located?
Yeah, so it reads, I just read this 10 times with a heart emoji, I swear, heart emoji, and just felt even harder for you, which I don't think I could have been any more crazy over you than I already was. That book is everything I've ever wanted to hear. You can do anything you want with those boys. You're their daddy. Don't need mom's permission. Cable wants to get back to wrestling. He loves it. He just got his ass kicked at a tournament and is scared to compete now. Just wants to go to practice. Doesn't want to lose. And you know what the sperm donor said to him after he got his ass handed to him? Not a fucking word other than, it happens. Nah, let's go home and I'll show you how to get out of this move. Just, it happens. They need you so badly. Cade is your football and baseball kid. Kid can throw a damn ball. Heart emoji.
And who is this communication to?
It was to Houston Dinker.
From Karina Cooper?
Yes.
And what date and time?
Yeah, so it's on March 8th, 2021 at 7:03 in the morning.
And I'll ask you to try to slow down just a little bit if you could.
Okay.
So there's an additional message at 34 seconds later?
Yes.
What was that?
Good morning, baby. You would have woke up to your horny wife's hand wrapped around your dick this morning, just so you know.
And 39 seconds later, what was that message?
Here's hoping for a rogue semi today. Big accident, no survivors.
And again, that message was from Karina Cooper to Houston Dinker?
Yes.
So Karina is the one that sent that message?
Yes.
All right. Now, this is a message from Houston, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this is on that same date, March 8th?
Yes.
What was that message?
And you aren't a fucking loser. Look at all the fucking work you've been putting into us. My God. Plus, with the me working out thing, then boys need a father that's in shape to lift with them, run with them, be able to push them. So Cable doesn't have to worry about losing another match. Cade can be a complete fucking animal on the football field. Both just strong little men that nobody will fuck with. And nobody will ever fuck with their little sisters after they see them studs roaming around. Really don't want Cable to ever have to have that feeling again, ever, in his life of defeat. Have thought about that ever since you told me that. Can't let our kids ever feel like that. Can never make them feel like they lost. Even if they did, pick them up. Show them the positives of the situation and work on shit for next time. Everything in life is a learning curve, not defeat. Them kids will understand that as their dad's on their ass for getting down on themselves ever.
And then this is an additional message about an hour later from Karina, correct?
Yes.
And what was that message?
Breeze blowing the curtains, listening to thunder. Ugh, I don't want to wait another summer.
And we've heard testimony previously that Ryan was killed in June of 2021. These messages are again approximately 3 months prior to that. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. You located some additional messages on March 12th. This first message is from Karina Cooper. What is that message?
I read somewhere that even if the surgery doesn't work, you can still do IVF.
And an additional message 23 seconds later.
Might be pregnant this time next year.
And Houston Dinker's response?
IVF, question mark. Would love for you to be pregnant this time next year. I would love babies in my slow season so I can be around to help and spend time with you and the baby as much as possible.
And Karina's response?
In vitro fertilization, they implant your sperm and my egg, not the old-fashioned way, but our baby. Option if the surgery doesn't work.
All right. Moving on to June 13th, so this is approximately 5 days before Ryan Cooper was killed, correct?
Yes.
All right. What's the first message?
Every time he's around.
And Houston's response?
Just explain that to me, please.
And then what's this message?
Nothing has happened since Florida, and if you think I forgot about you in the moment, like there was some big romantic moment, then, well, fuck you, because you have turned me into giving him a fucking peck to get him out of the door instead of resisting and raising a fit and probably taking much more. You've taken that and made it into this huge deception and betrayal that you have continuously brought up and beaten me over several times. So let me ask you also, since we're being honest, Why, if you love me so much and promise to spoil me rotten and put me above everything in your life, why is it so easy for you to belittle me? Turn your anger towards me. Pick fights with me over the same thing over and over again, and hurt me by making me feel like a piece of trash cheater. I mean, just curious. Find a fucking mirror, Houston, and take a good long look.
And what was the next message from Karina?
I'm fucking done with this conversation.
What was your understanding of this conversation?
It was a little confusing. At first, it really seemed like she was...
Objection, Your Honor, to any sort of interpretation and narration.
Sustained.
Moving on to the next series of messages. This is June 17th, correct?
Yes.
Again, the murder occurred on June 18th. First message from Houston.
Yep. Night, get tired of me working.
That was at 9:52 a.m., correct?
Yes. And looks great. In case you haven't noticed, I like to stay busy too. You'll have slower times. Winter will be really slow. Just be prepared for your wife to constantly be tearing something apart and redoing it.
Okay, again, so we're one day before the murder, and Karina is sending that message to Houston, referring to herself as his wife.
Yes.
Okay, what's the next message?
Not worried about that one bit. You got to see me in my underwear this morning, and I haven't gotten to see you.
And what's Karina's response?
Train wreck.
And Houston sent a message then at 10:54, again, the day before the murder. What was that message?
Going to sleep with my hand on your pussy very soon.
What was Karina's response?
Soaked just thinking of you. Will be downright embarrassing when I actually have you in person.
And Houston responded to that about 34 seconds later, correct?
Yes.
What was that response?
Why? I love how wet you get for me.
So moving on to June 18th, did you find additional Snapchat communications then between Houston Danker and Karina Cooper?
Yes.
All right. We've heard some testimony in this case already regarding what occurred on the morning of June 18th, and that Aaron Cooper was contacted at 4:30 a.m. by Karina Cooper. She stated that someone was in the house. What time is this first message that you found on June 18th?
At 3:31 in the morning.
And what was that message?
A heart emoji.
It says here he responded approximately 2 seconds later. What was that response?
Seriously, more than fucking life.
And Karina's response 8 seconds later.
Forever.
All right. And then Houston Danker's next message to Karina Cooper.
More than anything, okay, babe, phone's going down. Send me something after I leave your house to then wait for me to open it. Deal?
Again, this is at 3:31, so this is approximately 1 hour before that call to Aaron Cooper. Did she respond to that message then 8 seconds later?
Yes.
What was that response?
Deal.
Okay, so she said deal at 3:37 a.m. on June 18th.
Yes.
Karina's next message, what was that?
A kissy emoji.
That was 3 seconds later,
Yes.
right after she said deal.
Yes.
15 seconds later, Houston Danker sent an additional message. What was the time of that message?
At 3:31:55 in the morning.
What message did he send to Karina Cooper?
Remember those casings. Fucking remember those. No ifs and or buts.
No ifs, ands, or buts?
Yes.
She responded 14 seconds later. What did she say?
Absolutely, 100%.
What was the date and time of that message?
Yeah, it was at June 18th, 2021 at 3:32 in the morning.
He responded 10 seconds later.
Yes.
What was that response?
Okay, phone's going down. I love you.
11 seconds later from Karina Cooper.
I love you too.
Houston's response 7 seconds later.
So much.
9 seconds later, Karina Cooper.
Forever.
And he responded 8 seconds later, correct?
Yes.
What did he say?
Okay, babe. Seriously, putting the phone down. Have to get this shit done. I love you.
And what was the date and time of that message?
June 18th, 2021 at 3:32:54 in the morning.
And Karina's response.
Go.
4 seconds later, she said, go.
Yes.
What was the time of that communication?
Yeah, it was June 18th, 2021 at 3:32:58 in the morning.
His response when she said, go.
It was an hour and 9 minutes, 4 seconds later. It says, yep, just woke up.
Okay. Were you able to find additional Snapchat messages belonging to Karina Cooper, not necessarily with Houston Danker, on her cellular device?
Yes.
Were all of those found in the deleted folder?
No.
What are we seeing here on this image?
There's approximately 2,400 snap messages on that phone, and only 61 of them were deleted, which includes the messages to and from Houston up into the night of the shooting.
All right, so of the 2,400 Snapchat messages, 61 total were in that deleted folder, and that includes the messages that we just saw?
Yes.
Were you able to find additional information relevant to your investigation from the phone associated with the night of the murder, which was June 18th, 2021?
Yes.
What are we seeing here in this image?
Yeah, on June 18th, 2021 at 4:13 in the morning, it showed there is a live photo that was watched. And then also that same morning at 4:18:22, it shows that there was 2 photos deleted.
All right, so talk to me first about at 4:13, it says watched live photo, as you just discussed. What does that mean as an investigator when you see this information? What of relevance are you able to determine?
User interaction with the phone.
Okay, what do you mean by user interaction with the phone?
So when you watch something, it's showing that you are opening that photo or video, whatever it is, and actually viewing it.
So someone has to be manually manipulating or operating the phone.
Yes.
Okay, and at 4:13 a.m., somebody was watching a live photo on Karina Cooper's phone.
Yes.
And it looks like 5 minutes later, 2 photos were deleted. This is at 4:18 a.m.
Yes.
So again, that call to Aaron Cooper was 4:30 in the morning. This is 12 minutes prior to that. 2 photos are deleted. What does that mean? What information is of relevance when you see this?
It shows that these 2 photos are deleted, and then they're then put into that recently deleted folder. So it just shows, again, user interaction.
Okay, so it's that same user interaction or manipulation of the phone.
Yes.
Were you able to make any determination about the nature of these images?
Yeah, both of those images appear to be screenshots of a Snapchat image. Both of them had just kids in them.
Okay. There's some information here about Apple Health. Could you explain, as an investigator, what was important about this information?
Yeah, so with the Apple Health app, it automatically counts your steps, walking, running distances, so it shows movement.
Okay. Is that an app that, well, it says here Karina Cooper's Apple Health, so I'm assuming this was an application that was on Karina Cooper's phone?
Yes.
And what type of information are you able to obtain besides, you said steps, but are you able to obtain dates, times, what other information?
Yeah, so the date and time when you start moving and when you end moving.
And based on your training and experience, can you explain when does the phone record movement versus times when it doesn't record movement?
So when you're actively walking around is when it starts recording the movement, and it doesn't show the end time until that movement stops. So it has to be a constant movement.
And an individual has to be in possession of the phone at the time, correct?
Yes.
What were you able to determine then from this application?
Yeah, it shows here on June 18th, 2021 at 4:23 in the morning, movement started, and then it ended at 4:33.
Okay, so 7 minutes prior to the call to Aaron Cooper, movement started, and it says it looks like that the duration in minutes there was
Yeah,
9.
9.62.
Okay. You were able to determine both steps taken and distance. What were those steps and what was that distance?
Yeah, it shows the distance in meters as 120. If you translate that to feet, it goes to 393 feet, and then 170 steps taken.
Okay, so starting prior to that phone call to Aaron Cooper, a distance of 120.5 meters was covered.
Yes.
What are we seeing here?
So that is actually a blueprint of the house, and so the average size of a school bus is 45 feet. So you can see that the width of the house, so the perpendicular is actually smaller than you put two buses perpendicular. That red X is where I was advised where Ryan was shot at.
What are we seeing here?
This is showing distance traveled. So as I said, the 170 steps, if you were to take the meters and turn it into feet, actually turns into 393 feet. And so it's a little bigger than one football field.
Okay, so this image shows 100 yards of football field, 300 feet, and then an additional 30 plus yards, correct?
Yes.
Did you compare that then to the house itself and the size of the house?
Yes.
What were you able to determine?
That would have taken like 9.5 houses, basically.
Okay. Judge, may we have just one moment?
You may. Aaron, you turn the lights back on. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take our lunch break at this point. So I would again remind you of the admonition I gave you. Again, highlight a couple key points since we're going to take a longer break. Keep an open mind. Don't talk to anybody about this case. Don't let anybody talk to you. Don't do any sort of investigation, and stay away from any sort of media coverage of this case. And with that, hope you all are able to have a good lunch, and ask that you be back here ready to go at 1:30.
this demonstrative being admitted.
Okay, we'll make a record on that. How about you guys come back at about 1:20?
Okay.
And then I guess, just so I understand, if it's a demonstrative exhibit, I mean, as you were going through it, things were being added. Do you see what I'm saying? What form is this exhibit going to take? I mean, is it like on a flash drive, and then when a jury sees it, it'll start, like, for example, at the beginning, there were blanks where the Snapchats were, and then they came in. How does this look to a jury if it goes back?
Judge, we can either, when we upload it for the court, it'll just have all of the information on there. It won't be animated in any way. Okay. So each sheet will just have the full communications on there. There won't be a need to click through.
So like the last one where, again, houses came up on the football field, it would just show up with the houses on the football field.
Correct.
Okay. And then, while we're on the record real quick, the Snapchat messages that we saw, those are the same as State's Exhibit 1 that was offered earlier in connection with the motion hearing that we had?
Yes.
Right. Those were sealed. No reason to keep those sealed anymore.
Correct. Well, that's correct.
All right. So State's Exhibit 2 is different. I am going to unseal.
Correct.
At some point I will unseal State's Exhibit 1 then. All right. Any issues with that on your end, Ms. Watt?
No.
All right. I'll see you guys at 1:20.
Thank you, Judge.